Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Game Master and welcome to my channel. Now a few years ago, back during the whole hype of Mighty Numbers 9 Kickstarter and the start of the whole fiasco that went into creating a halfway decent but nonetheless kinda disappointing game that was Mighty Number 9, there was another Kickstarter for Shantae Half Genie Hero by Way Forward. It got a little hype by the press and other gamers, but nowhere near the massive hype that Mighty Number 9 did. But I managed to donate more to its Kickstarter than Mighty Number 9. Why? Because in this case, I knew the games that its developer, Way Forward, had created, and I enjoyed most of them. Most people don't know them because a lot of their work isn't on their own IP, but they have done things like Contra 4, DuckTales Remastered, and Double Dragon Neon. The Shantae series had the time also only had 2 games that were more cult hit, and unless you were rich enough to actually buy the Game Boy Color cartridge that runs about $400 on eBay, opened and used I might add, the only game most people could get their hands on was the second game, Shantae's Risky Revenge. Since that time, Shantae's and the Pirate's Curse has come out, and Way Forward has also released Risky Revenge and the Pirate's Curse to pretty much all consoles, so you can pretty much get these games anywhere. Anyways, just in time for Christmas, they managed to complete Shantae Half Genie Hero. So what does this backer think of this game? While it doesn't get as much press for good or bad as Mighty Number 9 did with its release, this is still one charming platformer not to be missed. It might not have gotten as much hype, but don't overlook this game. I'll get right down to it. The story is the most disappointing area in the game for me. Now don't get me wrong, it has the usual level of Shantae's wit and humor, as well as some good parody on the game industry, but has a cohesive thing that there is to really care about and characters to really care for, not so much. In fact, it's a huge step back after Pirate's Curse, which had a somewhat deep narrative, and we got to learn about Shantae's and Risky Boot's relationship, and that just gets completely scrapped during this. Half Genie Hero is just a little bit dry after getting so much in the Pirate's Curse. That's not to say it's a bad story, as the game is also now shorter and simpler, so it needs a story to match it, and the narrative in this story does that just fine. You're only really bombarded with story elements at the beginning of the stage, before a boss fight, and after the boss fight and stage is complete. Also, each stage is its own complete story, usually involving Shantae foiling one of the 4 Barons' evil schemes, with the exception of the second stage, which does have a good plot twist that I wish they had saved for a little later in the game and developed the character that's involved in it a little bit more. I won't go into what happens in the second stage, but there was a missed chance of having a good villain character that wasn't recycled from previous games here, and she just gets completely cut out before she even has a chance to make an impact, which is such a shame because it's a missed opportunity. There is one main plot thread that does go through Shantae receiving a warning that the genie realm is in trouble, and so she's going to help her uncle create a device to help protect the world, and of course Risky is going to appear and try to screw up everything. And I have complaints in that area as well. Having Risky return to be the antagonist is fine, but again, like I said, nothing is mentioned about the things that went on in the Pirate's Curse. Also, another complaint is we are once again hearing Shantae and the rest of the cast moan about her being a half genie. Again, this was fine in the original Shantae, and it was fine in Shantae's Risky's Revenge. However, she's gone through the Pirate's Curse, in which she was fully human and was able to save the world. She really should be stopping whining about being a half genie. Once again, the resolution that she can still do stuff as a half genie happens, and she ends up saying she'll never complain about it, at least until next game. What's the point of having characters to develop if you're not going to stick to the development of them? This is really, really sad. Now, like I said, story's still enjoyable, but there's enough here for me to nitpick to say that this is obviously, narrative-wise, the weakest of the Shantae series. The gameplay in this game is really solid and a lot of fun. Now again, I'm going to have to put on my nitpicker's hat and warn you, if you're expecting a Metroid or Castlevania 2 dungeons and levels designs like in the past games, be prepared to be disappointed. That said, what WayForward decided to do is still very clever, and although I hope we haven't seen the last of Shantae doing dungeon crawling, if WayForward decides to use this model again, I won't be complaining much either. The stages are now straightforward, with 3 areas to explore and then a boss fight, and the first time through an area you're going to be taking the most direct path through that is presented to get you through that area. After you complete the area, you will get a few new transformations and abilities for beating that area again. Back in town, in order to get to the next place, you will have to do a few side quests for your Uncle Mimic to help build his machine to unlock this area. This will involve you backtracking to those earlier levels and using those new abilities to move around. For example, you will have to use your monkey dance ability to talk to this girl in order to do a side quest for her to get her restaurant back in order, and by doing that you will also be filling a few other side objectives in town, which will eventually get you a copper wiring your uncle asked for. The game always gives you clues at the bathhouse, so you always know where to go and what scene to look in. Throw in easy to purchase warp dance, and backtracking is never a problem, and the areas open up to a large degree with each new transformation Shantae earns. What looks to be a simple straightforward stage all of a sudden turns into something a lot more complex when you earn the abilities to explore each nook and cranny. The water in this factory can be dived into with the water forms, or you can explore it as a bird to see what areas you wouldn't be able to explore in just your human form, and that is a lot of fun. It took a lot of creativity to design these stages this way. It might not take as much brain power to finish these as the dungeons did in Pirate's Curse, but to say these stages aren't fun would be downright lying. As far as Shantae's offense goes, we have her usual hair whip. We also have magic powers to purchase. Most of these are from Risky's Revenge, the usual pike ball, fireballs, and other weapons at the shop. The purchase of these power-ups are a bit overpowered though, and while I found Half Genie Hero a little harder than a Pirate's Curse, once I purchased Shantae a few upgrades, the game began to get quite a bit easier, which gets me to actually talking about the game's negatives. And what are they? Well, they're the same negatives I talked about in the Pirate's Curse. The last level of Half Genie Hero, while nowhere near as bad as Pirate's Curse, is still a really big increase in the challenge, and that can be offsetting to players. While most of these were more in a puzzle format than an action format, expect to get a little frustrated getting through Risky's castle. The second big complaint is this game has another MacGuffin hunt in order to get to the real ending. Actually, correction, several MacGuffin hunts at the ending of this game. Again, not as bad as Pirate's Curse and a lot more optional, but still you're hunting for useless crap just to hunt for more useless crap so you can see a slightly better ending. This annoys me just a little bit, and unlike Pirate's Curse though, the ending isn't radically changed and you still get a proper last boss fight if you decide not to go through with this ending. If you can't tell graphically, Shantae Half Genie Hero is gorgeous with great animations and great background work, even great enemy design, and a really smooth frame rate. Shantae is a living cartoon, and it's just one of the prettiest games I've ever seen, and this is how 2D high definition should look. And even though I had my doubts about the way this game would look due to early concept art, I can just say its end result was beautiful, and I hope we see other high definition 2D games coming out that are just this beautiful. I love this look, and I wouldn't mind another Shantae game that looked this good. As for the sound, WayForward always has good music in its game, and Shantae is one of their best soundtracks. When you're playing a game and your 70-year-old uncle comes into your room asking what music you're listening to, you know the soundtrack on that game you're playing is pretty good, and that's what happened here. If WayForward ever releases a soundtrack to the general public, it was one of the Kickstarter yes, if you donated so much, I would definitely consider picking up a copy. As far as vocals go in this game, they're all done by Christina V. She's a well-known voice actor. She's done a lot of things next to the Shantae series. She's also appeared in Sailor Moon. She's also done voices for the Tales series, and she also done voices for anime like Hunter x Hunter. So she's been in a lot of stuff, and she sounds pretty good as Shantae. Well, guys, I'm going to wind up this review by saying Shantae Half Genie Hero. I might have a few nitpicks about its story and some of the gameplay elements not being perfect, as the game is not perfect, but it is still pretty darn fun. And for $20, definitely worth a pickup if you love 2D action games or just want something to have that nostalgic fix if you're an older gamer. If you are not sure because you do not fall quite into that genre of loving platformers, I still recommend putting this on your wish list and waiting for a sale. It's definitely worth checking out. It's really fun. It's a really simple and really charming platformer that deserves to be checked out by everyone. This is Tommy the Game Master thanking you for watching, but before you go, could you please subscribe to my channel? I would love to have you as a member of my community, watching my reviews and commenting on things. I just love the interaction I get here on YouTube. You guys have a nice day.